This project is the engine behind our nc-fttx-portal application. This is a Go-based app that's designed for telecom infrastructure projects. This repository that we're looking at right here is going to serve as the single source of truth for our CI pipeline. I've intentionally decoupled the architecture here. So if you notice, there's actually going to be two repos for this project. This, what we're looking at right now, this is the CI portion, and this here will be the CD portion. Okay. Now in this walkthrough, we're basically going to validate the image that we're going to use for this project. This will be our baseline application. We want to make sure that it works correctly in a sandbox environment. We're going to use Killer Coda, and we're just going to use a basic Ubuntu Linux sandbox just to test out the application and make sure the image works properly before we get into the project itself. All right, we're going to begin our technical walkthrough with a baseline validation of our image. The goal here is to verify the integrity of our containerized artifacts in a clean sandbox environment. We're going to be using Killer Coda, and we're going to use an Ubuntu sandbox environment. And just so you know, Linux is installed along with Docker, and we also have Git installed as well. Okay, so basically we have everything we need here to test out our image. Okay, and the image that we're going to be using is located here in my GitHub repo. I'll provide the link below. The specific tag we're going to use is latest. So this is the actual command we're going to use to pull our image. Okay, so first thing we're going to do here is we're going to pull the artifact. I'm going to use the docker pull command with the latest tag. And in just a few moments, we'll have our image. If we run docker images, we'll see that we do in fact have the image. Okay, so the next step is we're going to use docker run command. We're going to run this in detached mode on port 880. The name of our container is going to be prod-baseline, and this is the image, and this is the tag. When I hit enter, we'll have the image running. Now, if we go to the top right corner, you'll see that we have the traffic port selection here. And if we go to common port 80, we'll see that the application is actually up and running. Okay. Additionally, if we wanted to, we could run a curl command on localhost port 880. And we can just check the health endpoint as well. Okay. So next we're going to do the build process. We're actually going to clone my repo from GitHub into the sandbox environment and actually go through the build as another method of validation. So stay tuned. All right, now that we know that the application is working and our image is working properly, we're going to go ahead and validate the build logic for the application. And to do that, we're going to clone the entire project repo into our sandbox environment. So the link for the project repo will be provided below. And if we go ahead and scroll down to the application directory, we'll see that we have all the source code we need to perform our application build. So if we go ahead and copy the URL, we can go ahead and create a clone command. If we run git clone, we can go ahead and paste the URL here, and we'll obtain all of the files we need to perform our project build. So I'm going to take a quick look into the nc-fttx-portal directory, and we should have, perfect, all the application files and directories we need. We're going to go into the application directory and take a look at the source code. Okay, perfect. Then we're going to go ahead and take a look at the infrastructure directory, and that's where our Dockerfile is going to be located. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got our Dockerfile. Let's take a quick look inside. All right, so we have a multi-stage Docker build, and what we're going to do is start off with a Golang-based image, okay? And we're going to set up a working directory for the container code, and we're going to copy the source code from our local environment into the container's application directory. Okay, from there, we're going to go ahead and run the build command to compile all of the source code into an executable named app. And in the second stage, we have a much leaner image. We're going to go with Alpine here, the lightweight Linux distribution. And we're going to set up a work directory here as well. And we're going to grab all of the web-based files that we need from our initial stage. This is a web-based application, so we're going to need the HTML and CSS assets. Now, if we go here, we see that in the metadata, the exposed port will be 880. And then we'll run our executable. All right, so now that we have established the Docker file, we can go ahead and use the docker build command to go ahead and build the image. Now I'm going to use the docker build command here. As you can see, I have docker build-t, and the name of the image is going to be nc-fttx-portal. We're using the tag local here. The file, the Docker file, is going to be located in the infrastructure directory, and the application source code is going to be in the application directory. So if we hit enter, and we wait a couple moments, we'll see that the layers are going to start pulling. Now, because this is the first time we're running this command for this particular image, Docker is going to perform a cold build. There's no base image, and there's no pre-existing layers. So it's got to pull the environment from its source and execute every single instruction from scratch. So this is the longest part of the process. In subsequent builds, it's going to take a lot less time due to caching. So expect future builds to be a lot quicker. Okay, so in just a few moments, we're going to have the image, and we can test it out and then build our container. All right, so if we run Docker images, all right, we can see that our image has been built. We have the tag local on it, and we can see the image size. All right, so now what we're going to do here is go ahead and run the Docker run command. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clear Sandbox environment. I'm going to use the Docker run command. This is going to be in detached mode. We're going to run it on port 80. So on a browser, we're going to access port 880, and the container is set to run on 880, and we're going to name it test portal. And we're using this image, of course, the image we just built with the tag local. So if I hit enter, and then I access the traffic port selection, just like we did before, we're going to go to port 80, and we do have the running application. All right. And just like we did before, if we want to do the curl command, we can do a quick health check on localhost port 880, and we can check the endpoint, and it is healthy. Okay, so we've just validated the image and our multi-stage Docker build process. So now we'll go ahead and move on to the CI portion of the pipeline.